about ready to get this show on the road here. It's a little after 7 o'clock, and I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask the secretary to proceed with the call to order.
Call to order at 7:01. Roll call, please.
Ralph, you want to start?
Ralph Hernandez, 405.
Marianne Marcantonio, 1201.
Sunny Yevsky, 1605.
John Bercali, 904.
Kathy Martieri, 1506.
Judy Stork.
We have 2, 4, 5 directors present. Mr. Tavelin is not here today because he may show up later on, but he's in jury duty, serving his country and his county. So, and Mr. Longobardo is out of town, at least as I understand it. So, we do have a quorum. I think the meeting can proceed. So, let's move on to the next point of the agenda, which is the approval of the board minutes. Madam Secretary.
Yes, I'm going to propose to waive the reading of the minutes because they're 8 pages long and we don't all want to be here all night, most of us. They're in the back. Everyone, please help yourself. Do I have a motion to waive?
I'll waive. I'll motion to waive.
Motion?
Sorry.
Before we waive or before we vote, does any of the owners care to make a comment on the minutes? Otherwise, we will then take a vote to accept the minutes as written. Okay. Can we then have a vote to accept the minutes as written? All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed, so the minutes are recorded. We move on to the next item of business, which is the President's report. And generally, I tend to be very long-winded and bore everybody with a lot of details. I'm not going to do that tonight, except to say that there is one specific issue I would like to refer to, and that is that, as many of you know, the state of Florida was asked by one of the owners to investigate wrongdoing of the association. This was Mr. Cucuruto. Mr. Longobardo filed a separate document supporting that request. The association filed a response, and after considerable debate, I'll use that terminology because I have no idea what took place, except to say that the state came back and notified us yesterday that they are dismissing the case. After a year and a half of being accused of fraud, of mishandling of association funds, of committing criminal acts, the state of Florida has ruled that there is no grounds to continue the investigation. And I say the state of Florida, I want to qualify that. It's not the state of Florida, but rather the agency that is responsible for the administration of condominium associations, which is called the DBPR, which stands for, help me out here, I don't know. Is the Department of Business and Professional Regulations, Division of Florida Condominiums, Timeshares, and Mobile Homes. Okay? So, in the actual words of the person that filed the notice to us, basically said, and I will read it verbatim, the division has completed its review of the documentation provided and has determined to close the case. It's that simple. I'm not going to comment anymore, except the facts speak for themselves. Besides this, there has been numerous investigations of this association over the past 2 months. We have had a wage and hour inspection. We have had a couple of other state inspectors. We've had a number of of denouncements or complaints filed with the city. In every single instance so far, none of those have found any validity whatsoever. I want to repeat that. Any validity whatsoever in any of the complaints that have been filed against us. Lie after lie after lie has been told. Now, the response of some people who have been filing this complaint is that these are all bogus situations. You know, all the government authorities that have reviewed the situation are all bogus, just like the board that has acted within its authority and responsibility to protect the interests of the owners. With that, I don't really want to comment very much more, except to say that there will be further information that will be sent to the owners that will document further some of the things that I'm talking about. And oh, by the way, let me talk about just briefly what's going on in the building as far as the repairs. We've had major issues. I can't tell you today, and some people will clap their hand and say, see, I told you so. I can't tell you today that we're not going to have more costs. I can tell you today that we're doing everything we can to mitigate this. What has been found and discovered as the work has proceeded is horrendous. If you talk to some of the owners, nine apartments have been finished. As I understand it, I don't know if any of those owners are here tonight, but speak to any of those owners in those 9 apartments, and I believe they will tell you that they're very happy with the work that was done. The work was professional, it was thorough, and they tackled some major issues, particularly in the 8 stack, which created a lot of confusion in this building over the last couple of weeks, because we did have some major issues. Just to tell you about one of them without trying to get into too much detail, because one of our owners keeps talking about, oh, it's just a bunch of screws. Well, it's not just a bunch of screws. I mean, that shows either the lack of professional knowledge that he claims to have, or it's just one more lie that he's telling. It's not just a bunch of screws. One of the principal things that and I call it a thing because I'm not an engineer, but one of the principal pieces of the installation in these apartments is a support pole, or in some cases they call them a mullion. In several of the situations in the corners of the 1 and 8 stacks, what we have discovered is that we have mullions that are not attached to either the roof or the floor. They're floating. And this was the support. This was the support for your windows in those situations. I have people, everybody that's seen this so far, and I'm telling you a lot of people, including the city officials, they've all shaken their head and they said, I've never seen anything like this. And there isn't anything. I mean, I'm talking about engineers with a lot of experience. And they said, we've never seen anything like this. What I'm trying to tell you is, instead of being floor to ceiling, these poles were like this much short. So apparently these guys, instead of biting the bullet and putting in the right poles, they said, oh, let's not worry about it. Let's just stick it in there however we can. That's some of the kinds of things that we're running into. And I hope we don't run into more, but little by little we're beginning to move faster through the apartments, because one thing we are finding is that the problems are very similar. There are different problems in every apartment, but for the most part they're becoming more and more similar, and as they become more and more similar, our contractors can move faster. We hope that the project will begin to move faster. We've had some setbacks. We had to submit to the city responses of how we would deal with these particular issues of these posts that were totally, crazy. We've got all that done, and we're moving forward. But I want to tell you all that, there will be those that will say, oh, they're inventing all this and that and everything else. Go talk to the people. Go see for yourself. Ask somebody to show you some of the things that I'm talking about. Don't take my word for it, what I'm telling you. Because the evidence and the documentation is there. It's very clear. And I believe what's most important is at the end of this, the owners who have had their apartments worked on, up to this point at least, are quite satisfied with the work that was done. And to me, that's the most important. If the work was done right, and I believe it is, and if the owners are satisfied, in the end of the day, we are achieving, albeit at a cost, we are achieving what we've set out to do, and that is to make our building more secure and make our owners more secure and to protect their property as we move forward. This is a beautiful building, and once we get past this, obviously, we will have a major hurdle to overcome. So, I apologize for again being long-winded, but I at least wanted to point that out because there's a lot going on in the building. I can answer, or my colleagues can answer questions regarding what we're doing, how we're doing it, where we're going. And there again, I will only say that there's a couple of emails circulating around the building right now. I've seen them all. They're all full of crap. They say absolutely no truth whatsoever in them. And I'm not going to waste my time addressing all of the lies and mistruths because I'm tired of it. If the people that choose to follow the Pied Piper and his lies wish to do so, God bless them. Yes.
Elaine Ringler, 907. Okay, first of all, I want to thank the board for going forth with the windows, because in case of a hurricane, I would like to know that I'm going to have coverage on my insurance policy, which if we disregarded doing anything proactive and the companies knew it, none of you would get coverage on your, or might be denied coverage on your policies for any damage, resultant damages.
You mean denied coverage when you
No, it'll be denied if you haven't secured things. They have the right, because you have not taken the necessary steps. You knew there was a deficit.
No. We assumed there was a deficit and we hired a company to identify whether that is true.
Once you identified it, it becomes on the record and you have to move forward to rectify it. That's the deal. Unless Florida is Florida, at least up north, that was the deal. All right.
They didn't have too many windows up north.
Huh?
They didn't have too many hurricane windows up north.
No, but we had other stuff. We had snow that pulled it. And we had people coming down here for Andrew. So, in any case, with regard to this Cucuruto and Longobardo business that was just resolved, could I get if you don't have it at the moment, I would like to know what this cost in legal fees, this particular item. I think it's important that people know that when they go about and partake in frivolous claims, that the rest of the homeowners don't go unscathed. It costs us money.
Yeah.
So I would like to know exactly what this cost us.
Well, part of the cost, unfortunately, is the thousands of hours that went into the preparation of a 6,000-page report.
Well, somebody did that report.
6,000 pages.
Okay, so we had somebody either here or on our legal staff doing that.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, most of that work was done by volunteers.
Okay.
And
we must have had
everybody sitting at this table tonight is a volunteer. I think sometimes people on the other side forget that.
What did our legal cost?
I have no idea, but I'll tell you, it's a hell of a lot of money.
Well, that's not going to be good enough for me, because you have to have an idea, because you have billing downstairs that Judy could find out.
I'll tell you
it
what.
doesn't have to come tomorrow.
We'll
or the next
put
day.
the numbers together, but I mean, if I add some of the things that we had to deal
John,
with,
I think-
Mr. Vexenfeld, who's in the audience today, if I had to deal with those costs, if I had to deal with Mr.
I didn't ask
Cucuruto,
you that.
if I had to deal with Mr. Longobardo, I mean, I can't even tell you what the
John,
number
it's
is. It's a
important.
big number.
It's a big number.
We understand that there are very good volunteers in our community.
Not to mention the lawsuit that we're fighting.
I want to know what this, so everybody can know what this cost us.
Just the Cuckoo.
We are paying to fix the building. and
You want
people are
just the state? Is that what you want? I want to be
know
precise.
what part of legal costs? Didn't our attorney
Okay.
file papers on our
For
behalf?
this
Wait.
particular case.
For this
Can
particular.
I suggest something very simple? We should have a breakdown of our legal
course
costs
we
as line items. That's all.
We do.
That's what, I know
So
you do.
it shouldn't be that difficult.
I understand that. Okay, the other thing I might suggest to this board is I know that some of the apartments that were worked on, the people are very, very satisfied. If you might prevail upon them to put it in writing and then send out a blast email, it might help to stem some of the other emails that are circulating.
Well, let me throw this back a little bit, and let me try to put it into a different context. This is not a we and they. This is not
John,
some
it is a
board
we and
members. No,
It
but
is
let me just listen to
It
me
shouldn't
one
be,
second.
but it is.
Okay, maybe that's what I should have said. It shouldn't be a we and they.
Correct.
I'm tired of this, and I think the people that are up here are tired of being defamed and to have their characters slammed into the ground every single day for the last year and a half.
I don't disagree.
What
However,
I'm trying to get at is the following. This is not up to us to ask the owners to write, glowing memorials of how wonderful their repairs have been. I think you owners that should evaluate objectively instead of listening to the Pied Piper's crap, and then ask these people to speak up. The point that I'm trying to make is what's going on here is a classic. It's a classic game that's being played here. And frankly, I'm up here because I set out a year and a half ago to try to get to the truth. And unfortunately, I didn't like the truth, but at least I had the guts to move forward and ask my colleagues to go along with what was not a popular solution. And it's not. No one wants to spend $17,500 to repair our building. It's coming out of my pocket too, as it's coming out of everybody's pocket here. But I'm not going to go to some owners and say, write a glowing memorial of how wonderful it is so that the board can say, well, look how good of a job we're doing.
Okay, number one, I didn't tell you to say to them, write a glowing report. If they have something nice to say. Now, you're absolutely right, and I agree with you on all your points. People should step forward, and they should do this. And when you raise your children, they should know right and wrong, and they should know how to do things. But sometimes they needed a little prompting. And sometimes the people don't realize, because they're not maybe involved in this fray that's going on, okay? Maybe they don't realize the importance. You say you don't want to be defamed. I'm trying to give you a way. Maybe I'm not right. It's possible. Once or twice in my life it's been that, but I'm trying to find a way for you all and the volunteers and whoever they are not to get this kind of nonsense that is going around.
The only way that's going to be resolved, unfortunately,
Then don't do it,
is something that's very different.
John,
And,
don't do it. I'm trying to give
yeah.
you a vehicle that might help you. Maybe it won't, but it might.
It's a suggestion. Thank you.
Thanks for the suggestion. Hi, Gloria.
Cory, can you just give me a second? I have, one quick question. Inasmuch as so far we found what is obviously a defective installation in the 8 stack, are we recording all of this as it is identified?
Yeah.
Can I let John speak, please?
Every single window and every single door is being documented.
In what manner?
Well, there's extensive documents. There's,
In what manner is what I'm asking?
well, it's in written documentation.
But we're not recording it. In other words, we don't have pictures.
Yeah, of course we do.
Well, that's what I'm. That's what I'm
Every
asking.
single apartment has countless pictures. I circulated, for example, on 2801, a large number of pictures because what we found in 2801, You can ask Judy, for example, that one of the windows she actually touched, actually moved out. Okay? This was before the work had started. Had somebody leaned too hard in that window, it's possible they could have fallen through the window. Okay? We found that window, we're not sure yet. I'm still trying to get a straight answer. Was it one screw or two screws? That was it. Okay? So, to answer your question, Ralph, yes, there is substantial documentation. There are field notes that aren't in the office, but there are in the possession of the engineers. I will also state that the engineers are working closely with our lawyers who are conducting the litigation suit. So they are also documenting. Today we had a visit by the litigation lawyers, and they toured a couple of the apartments and they looked at what work was being done. They have been they are upgrading, I don't know the proper legal terminology, but they're upgrading the notification to the plaintiffs. No, not to the insurance company, to the guys we're suing, because they're saying, we found more. Okay? So, all of this is occurring. Okay, all this is occurring. But the bottom line, there's a substantial documentation, and anytime you want to see a Ralph, Judy's got a lot of it in the office.
It's not about me, it's about the owner.
No, but any of the owners want to see it. It's there in the office, and if you want to go deeper into it, talk to Judy, and we can get field reports and things of that nature. Believe me, it's extensive, the information that we have, and because, for two reasons. One, to give the owners assurance of what's being done, and two, eventually to be used in litigation. Yes, we will be using everything that is being produced in this work in the eventual lawsuits that are being filed. And I say lawsuits because we're not certain yet whether other parties will be brought into the lawsuit before it's finished. Okay? But that's where we are right now. I'm sorry, Gloria. Go ahead.
Okay, I personally, in regard to what Helene was talking about, I've been speaking to a lot of owners that have had their windows done.
Hold it, Gloria, a little closer to you.
And
You just take it out, sweetie.
I've spoken to a bunch of owners that have had their windows done, and I am absolutely shocked to see how happy they are about how it was handled. One in particular blew me away and got me really angry, and I think I heard this before with 2801, but another owner in a 28 stack told me that he took pictures of the windows and what he saw with huge gaps stuffed with t-shirts and newspapers.
Towels.
That's how it's been done. And I was so angry. You know, I don't know enough about law, and I know we have a civil case here. But to me, this is so horrible that people's lives, this should, to me, I don't know if it's because we're not doing it because it's no money in our pockets, but to me this sounds criminal. I don't know if you've looked into it or if that's bad for us and that's why it's not done, but it should be criminal, because if something happened and there was a hurricane, this is horrible. So I would just like, if you want me to do it, I'll look into criminal. If somebody here wants to, I think something else should be done. Maybe your lawyers don't want it to be done. Maybe there's a conflict. I have no clue, but it sounds like it should be criminal.
I think there's a lot of tests from a legal perspective of those types of things.
Are you referring to?
I don't want to say because the person. Thank you. 24. Lenny. Yeah. Lenny. And we're on the treadmill and we're talking and you did your windows. Oh yeah. I said, how'd it go? Oh my God, they did a great job. But let me tell you what I found. I was shocked, and I heard it before from the other. But when everybody's saying something, and I've heard the workers are very.
Thanks, Gloria.
I just
Hopefully,
wish you'd hurry it up because I want.
Gloria,
hopefully we won't find anything worse than that.
And my T-shirt says peace, love, and nature, and I wish everybody good health and peace. And I hope
Gloria.
a good summer.
what? Wait. Gloria, One thing that
Ralph wants
we,
to-
we need to make sure that we understand that there is a difference between a civil case and a criminal case. No, there is. Because in a criminal case, I would guarantee that the level of proof is a little more stringent. And right now, we're more interested in recouping as much of the cost that the owners have expended multiple times. And then we can work on making sure these guys go to jail. But the government should make that decision, not us.
Well, you see, part of this is the people that do work like this, they're out there, they're not only here, they're in other states, I'm sure a lot of people.
They're out there right now.
It needs to be out there to all these condos and all the buildings, everybody should know about things like this, that this is happening.
One last thing, and I think this is an important point, and I think just taking what Ralph said, and I agree with what Ralph just said, there's a whole difference of criteria, legal criteria, when you're dealing with civil versus legal. Civil has statute of limitations, and if we deal with criminal situations, there is no statute of limitation per se. Some kinds, there are some specific limitations, but generally, if you can demonstrate that a crime has been committed, you can pursue it. So it really behooves us to move forward, take care of our building, get our building fixed, get past that. And as we're doing all of this, again, I just want to remind you, we do have litigation lawyers involved in this process. And as we get into it and as we accumulate more information, we may well be able to make an argument. But I think as Ralph rightfully points out, we don't want to confuse one issue with the other. Right now, our first objective has to be to protect our owners, and that is getting this work done as quickly and as properly as we can, and two, get our money back to the extent that we can. That's our objective right now.
As far as the money, I hope at one point soon you can tell us how the money will be,
As soon as we know,
spread out to
as soon as we know.
all of us.
Well, you got to understand something, Gloria, and I think everybody needs to understand. There's no guarantee that there's going to be anything. I mean, no one can tell you, and anybody that says differently is lying. No one can tell you that we're going to get $1 million, we're going to get 10 million, we're going to get whatever. No one can tell you that. But the more things that we find that are grossly bad, I don't want to use the word negligent, but they really are. The more we find these types of things, the more we find water penetration that has damaged the interior of the building, because that's where most of the case ultimately rests on. The more we find this, the bigger the money claim goes up. Now, whether we get it or not, that's a different story. But, I mean, certainly the claim is there. And it's growing. The claim will grow. I don't have any doubt whatsoever, and because what we're finding so far with just the few apartments we've been in, that there is no question whatsoever, absolutely zero question that we have issues, and they're all well documented.
Well, I can't believe that any good lawyer with all this information couldn't get us money back, and my bottom line is, how is it going to be distributed?
Okay, several people have asked that question. I've answered that question several times. I noticed in one email that's circulating around, Jill kept asking Longobardo. God knows why she's asking him, because I answered the question to her twice. She's asking Longobardo, who has absolutely no knowledge of Florida law whatsoever. But I will repeat again, for the benefit of the owners who didn't hear the explanation the last couple of times. According to our attorneys, and you can go to another attorney and maybe get a different opinion, but according to our attorneys, the bottom line is, if and when there's a settlement, okay, it will go to the owners of record. Now, in the event that there is a document that establishes that an owner of record has granted that right to a former owner by virtue of a purchase agreement, then the former owner may benefit accordingly. And that's why in other discussions on the same question, I have told our owners, if you're going to sell your apartment, that's something you should negotiate with the buyer before you sell your apartment. But that's an individual thing. But the way the court goes in this whole thing, they don't try to figure out who was the owner when all of this occurred back in 2005 or 2006, or do they go back to discovery of 2013? No, the court doesn't do that. What they do is they simply say, who's the owner? They go to the record. The property record, whoever the owner is at the time of the settlement is the person who has a legitimate right to claim that, whatever it may be. And that's why you guys need to, go back to the people that, if you're selling your apartment, okay, and several people have bought in recently, so I guess some people have sold, whatever deal they've cut is a deal they've cut. We're not involved in that. And that's the way it is. Now, if anybody has a different legal opinion, get it to me in writing, and I'll get it to our lawyers. But in the absence of anybody that gives me something in writing that says something different, that's the legal opinion that we have. And I don't care what the opinion is of other people, because at least I do have a legal opinion from our lawyers. And what I've just shared with you is that legal opinion.
Okay, do you have any kind of time idea?
Today, Evan told me we're within the 4 years.
Up to 4 years?
Huh? We're within the 4 years.
I don't think they really can.
They can't say, Gloria. These guys they're going to have to pay. They're pushing this off as long as they can. Okay? And our lawyers are pushing as hard as they can to bring it forward. Somewhere in this whole process it'll happen. I can tell you in one case that I fought in New York, took 12 years to arrive at a decision, and the decision wasn't arrived at until the plaintiffs, the plaintiffs finalized their questioning. And then and only then did we, the defense, because in that case I was on the defense, it was only at that point when we were beginning to initiate our process, did the other side say, let's meet in Judge Chambers after 12 years. Okay? That's how a lot of these cases go. Basically, these guys are going to delay it any way they can. But look, right now, we got a lot of going for us. We've got real, true evidence, and these guys know it. So at some point, this process will begin to become more dynamic. But the last thing in the world we want to do, that was suggested by, again, Mr. Longabout. Forgive me for keep mentioning his name, but I'm sorry, I'm going to keep mentioning it because this guy is wrong 99% of the time. His solution was to call up the guy that signed the documentation saying that everything was okay and saying, hey, why don't we negotiate when we already had a legal action initiated? I mean, come on, give me a break. No. Fortunately, he has been told by the lawyers, stay out of it. And fortunately, actually, one time in his life, he's probably listened to somebody. Okay, so that's where we are right now. Jake?
I have a couple of questions. Of the 9 units that had been completed, how many were 08s and how many were 07s? Do you know?
Judy?
There was 20 to 1, which is a 1, and the 7s, there were 8 7s completed. The 08s are all, the 08s that they've done so far have only been partially completed. They've only done the bedroom windows, and they're gonna go back and finish those next week.
Okay. Well, that's not such good news because we don't really have all that much experience then with the 08s and the 01s as far as...
We had enough experience in the 08s, Jake, to realize that we had an issue with those posts.
Okay.
And that's what stopped everything in the 08s. We couldn't continue to move on the 08s until we figured out how we were going to deal with it. And we had to go back to the city and discuss it, and we had to reach certain agreements with the city, in which we did.
Okay. couple of other things. First of all, if I'm not mistaken, criminal charges can only be levied by a governmental agency, not by private citizens.
Yeah, I understand.
Not governmental agents, not by private citizens. We couldn't charge anybody for criminal negligence.
Only the court
The- or a
can,
officer
exactly.
Somebody,
Of the
now,
law.
I'm been privy to all of the emails that have been floating around, and there were two things that I think the board should clarify, and it's obvious, but I think it should be clarified. One of them was, somebody has the notion that if they go into their apartment and they find nothing, they're entitled to get a refund of $17,500.
Well,
If you notice, that was in the email, so it was
Yeah.
4,000, not zero. But-
yeah, whoever wrote that believes in the tooth fairy.
But I'm just saying, you gotta clarify that. The other thing is, if there is a settlement, every unit is gonna get the same amount. There's not going to be disparity because the association is levying the same amount of money to every unit for the assessment. So that should be clarified as well, because that was a question that was asked as well. So-
Sure, well, this number that's been floating around of $4,000, this number has been floating around of $4,000. I mean, anybody could do some quick math and figure out that that's the most absurd number that's ever been
The
thrown
point
out there.
is-
so.
We understand.
If they go
I
to
mean,
one
the guy was
apartment-
smoking something when he put out that number. Come on.
But
let's-
even if it's true, that particular unit owner himself does not, or herself, do not get a rebate of the difference between 17,500 and the 4,000,
No.
which is what they're suspecting, what they're implying.
no, the-
Look,
Last but not least, I think that nobody except very specific members of the board who have been assigned to that task should be having any communication with our attorneys, and attorneys should not accept any communication from anybody else.
The attorneys have been put on notice that any communication with them has to be directed in accordance with the resolutions of the board, which is basically, they either have to communicate with me or with the manager. They are aware of that. That doesn't keep anybody from writing letters to lawyers. Of course, they can write letters to lawyers until they're blue in the face, which is, of course, happening over the last day or two. But that does not have any merit. So I don't want to belabor that. But yes, the lawyers have been put on notice. I think Emil has a question or a statement or whatever.
Emil, before you do that, okay, the lawyers were put on notice. My question is simple, and we have the legal right to require that only either whomever is allowed as a board or as an individual. That's what I'm trying to get at.
No, what we have agreed on is we have agreed that the president is a representative of the association before third parties.
Who's we?
The board.
Voted on that last month.
No, I just want to make sure everybody else
Yeah,
understands.
the board has agreed on a resolution that basically is established that the president is responsible for representing the association before third parties. Okay, that's a separate issue, but third parties would be lawyers and things of that nature. Yes, sir.
My name is Emil Wexenfeld. I am from apartment 50 on the 3. You publicly abused me, and that's what I have to respond for record. First of all, I was all 3-day participate with Wilcott, and I have first-hand information. For all information which she provide and you provide to all association, information was not clear.
No, I'm sorry, not what?
Not clear.
Okay.
Some information which was in a letter July 17, 2015 show.
What are you referring to, Emil? Try to get to the point.
If you
This isn't
if you
open mic,
look at
first of all.
all documents, you will see.
We don't have
Look at document July 17 by Wilcott, and you will see a lot of information.
Yeah, the
I
July
will
17th letter is
I
on the
will
website.
I will not repeat it. I will short time. So my attention is, as a professional engineer, which I obligated to write to board of directors anything which, in my professional opinion, is wrong. Therefore,
What's the point, Emil?
I want to defend myself. You abused
Well,
me.
This isn't the
This
time
is-
to defend
No,
yourself.
when you want me to defend myself.
Well, wait a minute.
This
You've
this
gone
is
through
not a
I want to
forum for
tell you
defense.
because
5 engineers you've reported already
I
to the
already
board of
sent you
engineers.
17 questions, and you during 2.5
It's all
months
been responded
did
to,
not respond.
Emil.
Okay. No, okay.
You may
You
not
got your
agree with
response.
you
No.
may not agree with the reply, but it's been responded to.
No, you did not respond.
It's been responded to,
Okay,
Emil.
In final, for your information, everything what I done, I follow the rule. And let me just read one law which I follow, and that's what all about. This is
Please
related.
submit it.
Emil, please submit it to the, submit it to
I'll
the board.
I'll-
Submit your letter or whatever it is, or your document to the board,
Okay,
and fine, we'll
usually
respond to
you
it.
try to not to give me a chance to tell you.
But
I would like
what
to,
do you-
and I demand.
This is
read
not a
this
forum,
document
this is
because
not a
it's
forum for
very
presenting
important
your
document.
differences of opinion.
This is a document.
Regardless of what it is, it's your opinion.
No, it's not my opinion. This is
It's,
the law.
it
This
is
the
your
law which I
opinion
want to read.
presenting a law.
This is a law which I want to read you, and let me do it.
No,
We
submit it
aren't
to the
interested.
association. I don't see what point we're serving with this.
Yeah.
All you're saying is, right, I'm right and you're wrong. What we're saying is, we disagree with you. That's the end of the discussion,
You
Emil.
abused me. You abused me.
No, you've abused and taken advantage of us.
What
and
we have
cost
said is
every
you
one of
cost us
a
thousands
lot
of dollars.
Money,
Let
a
me-
lot of
let-
money.
Let me read this.
We don't want to hear it. Thank you very much.
Okay, for
We said
for
submit
record,
it, yes, for the record.
For record, you did not give me a chance to defend myself.
No,
Now,
what we have said is submit that in writing.
I finish this question. The next question I am talking about, I sent 2 letters to Judy about asking for report. One report which was sent on December 22, and you said, I would like to follow the rules of 10 days. Okay, 10 days it was.
The rules vary depending on the circumstance, and that's by the state, not by me,
No,
okay?
I'm not
So-
saying, yes, you follow the rule,
Yeah.
no
We need to
objection.
continue. I'm sorry,
But
Look,
when the
look,
time came and I did not receive any
Emil, look,
report.
here's what I'd suggest
No,
you do.
I said
Everybody and their
second
brother
Please
that is disagreeing with us is filing complaints with the state. Why don't you file a complaint if you disagree with the way we're handling it?
So thank you
I
very
will speak with the manager.
Thank
I'm
you
not
very
aware of
much
your
for
letter.
Advice. I know. Thank
I'm-
you. But
I'm
let
not
me
aware of your
finish.
last
No, you're
letter, so
finished.
I will
Let me
review
finish.
your
You
last.
are finished. Please sit
Let
down.
me
We
finish.
need
I
to
did
continue
not
with this
receive
meeting.
any report. Therefore, I cannot comment about anything. But for
Well, this is
for-
not the forum for that.
But what I saw, a small paper this size. It's called the latest project, which signed by Pistorino. First of all, you cannot even read what it's all
not
about.
gonna straighten.
And I told to Judy, we paid $250,000 for documentation, and documentation presented in a way how it should be. This is not a format. It should be full site of drawing in the office, at least.
Amo, I'm not going to get in discussions of the
I
law. You want to discuss the law? No, I'm sorry. I'm not a lawyer. So if you want to question
No,
what
that's
the
what
association has done or hasn't done,
That's
put it
what
in
I-
writing. I will submit it to our lawyer and ask our lawyer to respond.
And we'll
In
send it to the state
and
and,
the second thing,
Okay,
which is
no.
most important,
we need to continue.
document which I just look at quick.
The
is
treasurer's
a
report,
copy
Judy?
of seal.
Emil, please sit
It's
down so we
not
can continue.
Copy of seal of the document.
Emil, all I
It's
can
not
tell you is
permitted.
every time you bring an issue, it's costing
lose
this
half of-
association money. And that's all I said in the beginning.
Do it in the right
I
way.
said you have cost this association thousands of dollars. Well, we have responded over and over again.
We
Chapter-
are.
All, the law, 5 engineers disagree with you, Amo.
How should be sealed the document?
Okay, that's enough. We're moving on to the treasurer's
Thank
report.
you.
Unless,
We got one more gentleman.
unless you have something to say. Thank you. Treasurer's report?
And let's
It's not,
I just, Judy made a statement, or you made a statement that Judy almost went through one of the windows.
yes.
Okay, I would like to know, and I don't, I'm not even gonna ask if it is. I think if it hasn't been done, or if it has, great, that this should be documented with, I'm just saying, if her statement, signed statement, notarized or whatever, should be part of the file if it isn't, that's all I was gonna say. And I think these homeowners should also know how much it costs us, how many thousands, when he spoke to the, whatever the engineer was before. Because I think it's time they really get a feeling for what nonsense is costing them.
Well, I
They could've done this
negotiated an
project
$8,000 elimination of a bill, so I won't include that additional $8,000 that was going to be charged to us.
And-
But besides that, there's quite a bit more, so
Well,
I mean.
I think numbers speak louder than quite a bit more.
Okay, fine, we'll take care of it.
Treasurer's report?
Can I say one thing? I want to agree with Helene. At a meeting at the beginning of the year, one of Joe's meetings, I got yelled at by one of the people doing these lovely little suits and told about the elevators that I was welcome to spend my money, but I was not welcome to spend his money. Well, right now, he's welcome to spend his money, but I want to know how much he's costing us, because I'm not willing to spend my money on frivolous lawsuits.
I agree.
So we need to know who. If I get yelled at for it, he needs to. So
Okay.
Lean's right.
Okay, we're going to move on. Thank you. We're going to move on to the treasurer's report.
Okay, John Tavelin, our treasurer, is not here this evening, so I'm going to give a summary of the treasurer's report. The current cash in the banks that we have, and unrestricted cash right now, well, as of the end of April 30th, 2016, we had $450,896. In restricted cash, that is the cash related to the special assessments, we had $458,531. So the total cash in the banks is at the end of April, was $909,427. And the prepaid amount in unrestricted cash is $162,020. For the income and expense statement summary, for the month of April, we were 3,471 favorable to our budget, and on a year-to-date basis, we're 14,736 favorable to our budget. At the end of April, the special assessment year-to-date spend was $183,086. Any questions?
Thank you, Judy.
For the management report, and this is for the month of April and May, we had a number of issues in the month of May, beginning on May 10th, where a unit owner came to the office around 9:30 in the morning and stated he heard some gurgling noise in the stacks. supervisor was in the office, we called the plumber. The plumber showed up around 2 o'clock, plunged his toilet. It seemed like everything was working fine. But then at 8:30 in the evening, security called stating there was a backup in 1206, that water's going all over the place. And we called the plumber, the maintenance supervisor, and the restoration company, who were here and started to do their work. The plumber snaking the line, the supervisor informing the security to call all people in the stack. There was water coming out in the hallways, on the carpets, everywhere. There were 7 units that were affected by water intrusion at various levels. What's interesting to note is that after the plumber snaked the line, he found remnants of carpet. I have it in my office. But what I don't have is he found also plastic and, a lot of toilet paper, which you would expect. On that same day, a few owners started calling saying that either they don't have water or that the water pressure was significantly reduced. The maintenance supervisor went to the domestic pump room and found that the pump had been shut off, and he did not shut it off. Now, the only people that have keys to that pump room are maintenance, the office, and security. This caused a major issue because, when you shut the pump off, then the water starts to drain from the tower, and therefore the upper levels would experience a low pressure, and then the lower levels would experience no water. And to this day, we don't know who shut that pump off in the domestic pump room. I don't know if it's sabotage or what caused it, but the problem with it is that in bleeding then the lines, the 7 stack had a clog, had an inordinate amount of sand in the line, which we had to call a plumber to restore those lines. We had to call an AC company to go through and back flush all of these lines to get them working again. What's really strange is that on 5/11, while somebody in Unit 1206 again was doing the laundry, the water then started to back up from the shower. Again, this is a second occurrence. I feel bad for the person in 1206 for this to happen. It was horrible. The restoration company was already still in the building, cleaning up the mess and restoring the mess from the day before, and so they were there and they responded to this as well. So the next day we called the plumbing company to clean the cooling tower, not understanding why there was this inordinate amount of sand, etc. And they cleaned it, and this time, after they had cleaned it, we drained the lines. In that 7 stack again, there were pieces of plastic and pieces of rust, like metal, I think coming from the fan on the coolant fan motor. This again caused some of the units in that 7 stack, especially the lower units from the 3rd floor to the 6th floor, to not have AC again until we went again, cleaned the lines, restored the lines, had the AC company come and back flush those units again. We since have called Kearney, the plumbing company responsible for putting a lot of those mechanical systems on the roof, not the cooling tower, but who knows a lot about cooling systems, to find out why the strainers in the cooling tower wouldn't have caught those little pieces of plastic. A lot of times, and this is not a new cooling tower, I think it was, they did some work on it, but it wasn't replaced. But when these cooling towers are older, and if you go in there with a pressure washer, of course, what's going to happen sometimes, you're going to loosen, some debris. But then the question still is, why did the strainer catch it? I'm waiting for the answer for that. I'm also waiting for the report from the restoration company. I believe I received it today, that talks about and shows pictures of the units affected and all the work that they've done, the air scrubbers and everything that were done to the units. We are going to have the carpets in the hallways steam cleaned as well. This is an unfortunate, terrible accident. So what happened then, after that, is we called we call Pam Blount Plumbing, was another good plumbing company. We had asked earlier if they could, in fact, I made a suggestion to the board and a recommendation that we video all of the stacks. I understand that this was done back in, I think, 2014, and I'm calling the company to find out where are all the videos of the stacks. But they started with stack 7, since this was, stack 6, I'm sorry, since this was the stack responsible for the, you know, the leak. And they showed me a picture from that camera of a 7.5-foot piece of snake that had somehow must have loosened from a plumber's snake, and because it was only a piece of it, it was 7.5 foot, and it went down that 6 stack. And you know, normally people would think, well, maybe the snake will go right down and right into the sewer line, but this one didn't. What it did is it looped around in the stack, so it was only a matter of time, and so things, you know, get caught on that snake, and that's probably part and parcel as to why, you know, we had these backups like this in the unit. So I feel really bad for, it was a horrible, just horrible incident.
Judy, can I ask a question? If you don't mind. Okay. Isn't the water pump room locked?
Yes, as I had mentioned earlier, it is locked, and the only people that have the key are maintenance, the office, and security.
That I know.
So we don't know who opened it to shut the pump off.
We have our suspicions, but
Unless somebody picked the lock.
But we don't know, but, you know, but maybe the intention was, you know, to shut the water off so that, you know, the leaks would stop or whatever, you know, I don't know. But you know, security did make the announcement over the speaker, I don't know if you heard it. Kathy, you were here, telling people not to use their water in their master bathrooms, et cetera. You know, I don't know, maybe that's why they decided, whoever did it, shut the pump down and caused a real huge problem. So.
Did we change the lock?
Yes, we changed the lock.
like, the locks had been changed.
So this is what, the third time, fourth time?
Yeah.
Switch. So, you know, I feel horrible about it. I keep thinking to myself, there may be something I could have done to alleviate, but I can't think of anything since we called the plumbers and the restoration company and everything. So, Ellen, yes, Ellen.
I think you said it went to the 6th, but that was under 907. We have a full,
Nine.
full project, that's,
Yeah.
and they had to blow out our line, so I guess it was stuff from that, and they had to put the free on it and everything.
Well, the freehand wouldn't have been, but it could have been. Yeah.
I guess we
Yeah.
blew it out, but
Yeah.
I don't know anything about AC, that's why I
Yeah. Regarding the, well, they're reported to the insurance, and I have got to get the cost yet, of course. Regarding, again, the window, sliding glass door remediation project, as we discussed before, there have been 9 units completed to date. They're behind a little bit in their schedule because, you know, first of all, it took, you know, an inordinate amount of time to do 2801, which is like 2 units. Okay, so, and you know, the learning curve and everything, they hope they can make it up. I have started a newsletter. It's not what I'll call a newsletter, but it's a status report. Now that we have a more cohesive schedule that I'll be sending out and giving everybody the two-week notice, as you know, as we indicated earlier, so that you can make some plans, you know, and not be so, you know, people are calling me saying, is this really the time? And I'm like, well, this is the tentative date. It's always going to be a tentative date because with construction, you really don't know. They can discover something in a unit. I mean, and whereas they always plan for 3 days in a unit, it could take 4 days in a unit. It could take 5, whatever they whatever they discover. So the dates that I give are basically tentative dates, and that's why I don't like to go beyond the 2 weeks, because then if I change one, it's going to change all the way down the line, and then everybody makes their, you know, because people, when you say tentative, still really don't think it's tentative. But I keep telling people I'll call you as it gets closer to the date, because things can change. Unit activity, currently we have 2 units under having construction done, 2801 and 2301. In terms of staff and personnel, we have a couple people that are gonna be going on vacation at different times, October through August. I'm sorry, July through August. And in terms of residents in the building, since the first of the year, we've had 4 new purchases, and we have currently 18 renters at Renaissance One. And that's it. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thanks, Judy.
Yeah. Yes. I have, we've noticed, and a couple people pointed out to me that the landscaping looks dead in certain areas. It looks like it's not maintained very well. It looks like the trees, some of the bark is hanging and things like that. I called a high-level person in the company that we're doing landscaping with. He's gonna be out here tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock to walk the property with me and Paolo. If anybody wants to join us, feel free. If you have any little itches or irks, or you don't like this, or you don't like that, this would be the time to point these out to the person who's coming here. It'll be here at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Thank you for reminding me. Okay. Next, Kathy.
Ratification of naming of Pistorino as engineer of record.
Just so that, to clarify what we're doing here and why, the original engineer of record was Wilcott Engineering. They were the ones that did the design plans for the project, and because of and I don't want to elaborate on the circumstances because then we're going to get into a lot of discussion, but one of our owners created a serious issue with this contractor to the point that I had to intercede to stop a lawsuit, or maybe not a lawsuit, but let's call it a legal action. Let's be fair. The bottom line was the engineer effectively told us, I'm not going to continue to be associated with your condominium. It's not worth it, and there's no reason for me to continue. So she did for a while, and she did agree for a while, but basically it was never a very comfortable relationship simply because she no longer wanted to be associated with us. In the interim, Pistorino was selected in the very beginning as our engineer our inspecting engineer. You have to understand, the engineer of record is really the person responsible for the design. The inspecting engineer is the person that's actually verifying and, more importantly, certifying the work that's being done as it's being done, okay? So Pistorino, in many respects, is the more important of the 2 engineers as the inspecting engineers, simply because they're the ones that have to accept the work. And because of the demands of the city that were made upon us, which were basically every single window and every single door has to be certified, it was important that we had a very reputable engineering firm assume that responsibility. So Pistorino assumed that. Now, when Wilcott basically reached a point where they said, look, we're not prepared to continue as engineers of record, and I could no longer convince them to retain that responsibility, I asked Pistorino if they would assume that role for a couple of reasons. One, because they were already associated with the project. It's something you all have to understand, is when there is a engineer of record change, you either submit a new design or you have to accept the design. So there's certain obligations that the engineer that's stepping in has to assume. So it's not just a simple thing of calling up an engineer and saying, hey, we want you to come in here and assume the engineers, the prior engineers' work. Pistorino was prepared to step in because they were very familiar with the work, and so essentially for all practical purposes, other than doing what they are required by law to do, they were required to do a number of calculations and do a number of things that they have to do which they did, they proceeded ahead with this. Now, because we were in effectively almost an emergency situation, I approached the board and I said, look, I need your authorization to go ahead as a board and name Pistorino to take this over, because without an engineer of record, your project doesn't continue. And I didn't want to get into a legal issue with Wilcott. I could have, but it would have been a legal issue. And frankly, I didn't want Wilcott coming back legally and then saying, well, look at all these other situations, making reference to a particular owner, which I didn't want to get into. So in the end of the day, fortunately, I went to the board. The board said, okay. I had a board majority that concluded or that agreed to name Pistorino. But obviously, it's preferable to do this as a formal board decision. So therefore, we put this on the agenda today to ask the board to formally approve the naming of Pistorino as the engineer of record. So in that regard, I wanted to ask the board and make a resolution to the effect that the board now ratify the prior agreement to name Pistorino as engineer of record. And that is the motion, and I'd like a second.
I second.
Now, before we vote on that, is there any discussion? Amo had the first question. Amo, please keep it brief. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Emil Wexenfeld, 1503. I would like to know exactly the date when Wilcott engineer resigned.
They didn't resign until we actually made the change. I don't know the exact date. I'd have to go back and look at the records.
The point is, because depend when she's out of responsibility, if document appear at the date later, before or later, that's what very important things. Everything should be done according to the law.
It is.
So
Yeah,
that's,
well,
that's
it was.
my attention.
It was.
That's what my attention. Okay, let me make it clear with the date. On the December 17, is Wilcott was in charge or not?
I would assume so, yeah.
We'll get back to you on that one. We have to check our records. We don't have them here with us. We didn't.
Let's put it this way. The change did not occur until recently when the change went to Pistorino. Let me explain something, and I'll be very clear. I think I've already made it clear, but I'll make it clear again. All right? Wilcott wanted out because she no longer wanted to deal with the issues that you were presenting in the manner that you were presenting them. You had gone to her office on numerous occasions, uninvited. You had created issues for her. You had accosted her. I was witness of one of those situations where you were incredibly rude to her and actually quite aggressive. I don't want to get into all of that except to say that she had said she had had enough. I was able to convince her to continue to stay in.
I don't need such. I ask only question, and I would like to have short question answer like you asked me.
We'll check the records and check the
Okay,
dates.
that's, okay, now.
Check the dates.
Okay, the second question is formality, how you transfer responsibility from Wilcott to Pistorino. It should be procedure to follow up. Without this, everything will be not correct. For example,
We follow the procedure.
did he accept manual, which we pay a lot of money and you said a lot of information? Is it in effect or not manual?
You mean the manual that you cost us $60,000?
Yes, the manual which I cost $6,000.
60.
16.
6-0.
Six,
0-0-0.
zero.
Anyway.
60.
Anyway, you know, Emil, I think if you have a lot of questions, first of all, if you don't think we've complied with the law, file a complaint with somebody. Because I'm tired of responding to your... Emil, you have done everything in your power to block this project for no reason whatsoever, except for your own ego gratification, and I'm tired of it.
I ask question and I
And I'm saying, you know better than I do because you go to the city and you check the records at the city.
of
Every
course,
day,
yes.
every day.
Okay, so you know the
No,
records,
but
and
I
if you
want-
found something
I want
wrong,
you
I'm
to
sure
tell
you would file a
people.
complaint.
We've
I
told
want
the people.
you to tell people what is all about.
We have
That's the
complied
question
with the
is-
law, and I think that's sufficient.
No.
If anybody doubts that,
I
check
would-
with the city, and
I
the city
would
will
like-
verify what I just said.
I would like the answer. Is manual, is it in effect or not?
The answer to that question is we have a new engineer of record,
No,
and the engineer
I
of
know
record,
without you.
and the engineer
The
of record
engineer-
is complying with what the law requires him to comply with. If you have any doubts of that, go to the city.
Yeah, and they won't let you in because you know they've thrown you out from the city already, so.
No abuse me.
No abuse you?
Yes.
What the hell are you doing to us?
Take it easy.
Let me tell you.
No.
Now I will tell you the truth.
No, we don't need you to
I
tell
don't
us
ask you.
anymore. It's enough.
I don't ask you.
It's enough.
I spoke to Miguel. Even you try to block my visit to building department.
Wait a minute. Again, that's a false accusation. You're not going to make false accusations here.
Just said-
We didn't block you.
Okay.
The city said
No
they
block.
blocked you.
Okay.
I
let
mean,
me-
we
let
do
me-
not have any authority
let me tell
to
you-
block anybody.
Let me tell you.
But that's a false
last-
accusation.
Let me tell
No,
you.
I'm sorry.
last
You're going to retract the
information.
accusation or you're out of
No.
order.
Let me tell you last
No, we're not going to
information.
listen anymore. You're out of order.
No.
You're not going to make false accusations.
I
I'm
did
sorry.
not make-
You
I
just
did not
did.
make-
You
No,
accused us of doing something that is totally ridiculous.
because they told me you are not allowed to be here.
Who told you that?
In the building official.
Well, maybe that's because you have a problem with the city.
Yeah, not because of us.
Okay.
It has
can't
nothing
tell
to
the
do
city
with
what to
us.
Let me
mean, how stupid.
finish information which
You
you
wanna sit
did
here and
not
listen to this?
answer.
Go ahead.
That's what I want you to listen.
All right, Emil, I think we've heard enough about that. If you really sincerely believe,
Yes, I sincerely.
Well, I hadn't
believe
even finished,
what
but-
I am doing according to law.
right,
Everything. what
and that's
I
why
said, I have
everybody has
documented.
disagreed with you so far.
Yeah.
The city,
Emil's
the
law.
engineers, and everyone else.
No, please, can we continue?
I have a
The
quick
resolution?
question. Since you're getting Pestorino ratified,
Yes.
I was wondering if every apartment that gets finished, as they go along, down the line, they can get a certification that it
Yes.
is complete.
Yeah, we
So
are
that
doing,
tornado
yes.
force, if there's every-
I don't know the exact formality of how the certification is being done, but to answer your question, there will be a certification of every single apartment.
Right, but I don't mean at the end, I mean during the process.
I'll have to check exactly how that's working. Judy, do you know?
No, I'll check.
We'll check and see it, but I do know because that was one of the stipulations of the city. So we know that, the engineers know that, the contractors know that, everybody knows that we have to have a certification of every single apartment.
Right, we know that, but.
So let me see how that's being done and how that's being addressed, okay?
Let us know.
I will definitely send out a notice and clarify that.
Thank you very much.
So we need to have a vote.
Okay.
No.
Please.
To Pistorino. No, 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 no.
Who is now personally engineer of record? Who do you name?
Pistorino.
Pistorino.
Pistorino. Alam and
Is the leader of company.
No, but the engineers of record are Alam and Pistorino. The actual engineer inspector is Asher, what's Asher's last name? Anwar. Yes.
Asher Anwar.
So when job in my apartment is complete, Chair, who will sign the certificate that windows are done accordingly to all rules, to all standards?
The inspecting engineer, that's Asher.
Asha,
Yes.
that's what I want to know.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, can we have the vote?
Now-
Okay, so can I have a vote, please? All in favor?
I'm gonna repeat the vote.
You made the motion, right?
Okay, no, we had made a motion to ratify the naming of Pistorino.
As the
And Ralph
engineer of
seconded
record,
And I second
And
it,
Ralph
so
and-
it's your vote.
Ralph seconded. You made the motion, Ralph seconded, and now can we have a vote, please?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that past that point. On to the next one.
Financing.
Report on the financing. I think, I hope that that the majority of you people are looking for financing, because if not, I'm incredibly disappointed because some of the board members have worked have made a considerable effort to get financing. They are presenting a financing outline this evening. And so I'll let Sonny explain a little bit about what they're doing. But if the majority of you are not doing the financing, I have to say that I'm incredibly dissatisfied and disappointed with the response of people that presumably claim that that's the only way they can continue to live in this building if they have financing. I don't understand it, but we'll go on from there. Sonny?
Fine. John Tavolin and I investigated a variety of banks, many of whom would not give us financing because of a variety of reasons, primarily the fact that we do not have reserves in the building. However, after, I think it was 4 banks that we went to, we have settled on Executive National Bank, and we are working with them to effect a loan for the 22, there are 22 people that have indicated that they wanted financing. 24, excuse me. There are 24 people who have, and we will notify them so that next week, hopefully on Thursday the 9th, we can have a meeting with those people, as many of them as we can reach, and if they're not here, we will affect information to them. We had a choice of an amount of loan, time frame, and of course with that were some choices as to the interest amount. We picked the longest length of time to pay out, because the longer the time, the smaller the amount of monthly payment. So the time frame is a 7-year payout with 5% interest, which unfortunately is higher than it would be if it were 3 years or 4 years. Those interest rates were lower, but the amount of money that we understand from people who were requesting the loan would have been out of sight for them. So therefore, when we hold the meeting next week, we are going to explain in detail the amount of money that approximately they will pay, plus any ancillary costs that the bank elicits. They have a commitment fee, and depending upon how many people actually wind up taking the loan, that will determine that particular commitment fee for those people. Each person that will be given a loan settlement agreement that, since it's coming from the association, it's the association that's taking out the loan. And there will be certain parameters that the individual would have to agree to in order to effect that loan from the association. They would then monthly pay out that monthly payment to the association, who in turn would pay Executive National Bank monthly. And there are certain parameters, as I said, that we will explain to those people who are the borrowers to sign this loan settlement agreement. It would be notarized, and as soon as that occurs, then the bank will go forward and complete their procedures in order to finalize the loan. But it would be an association loan. And we have tried to be very careful so that the association is not held responsible for any loan borrower who is in default. That would be totally unfair and unwilling for our association to lose money on this particular situation. Taking out a loan on the association can be a risky deal, and so we have tried to incorporate in the loan document agreement that needs to be signed and notarized by a prospective borrower certain clauses that would help us, the association, not be responsible for certain defaults, such as if there was to be a default, then the association would have the right to lien on the apartment, and in some cases to foreclose. So we will leave it at that, and unless there are questions, we will explain to those people who are truly involved in seeking the loan to have a meeting with them, hopefully next Thursday. We will work that out, and between John, Judy, and myself, we will speak to those people who, the 24 people who indicated that they wish such a loan. And if they are going to go forward with it, then they would have to fill out the various pieces of information that are required.
One thing I can add to that is that we're going to be working first with the people that have requested the loans. So there are, I think, 22 people, as Sonny indicated. There may be other people that may wish to participate, and they will be taken in on a availability basis. And the reason why I'm saying it in that context is that we have set a limit with the bank as to how much the loan is being granted. It's actually a $1 million loan. And right now, we've got a lot of room in that. The loan interest is only paid on a drawdown basis. So even though we have a higher face value of the loan, we don't necessarily have to pay for anything unless it's drawn down, which will be in the case of the 22 people. We will, of course, draw down the loan for those 22 people. But there will be the possibility that other people could step in, at least up until we reach the limits of that loan amount. And then, you know, we basically would have to close that option to other owners unless we seek to expand that, and then obviously that entails additional costs and things of that nature that we're going to try to avoid at all costs. So that's where we are right now. There is, we basically do have a firm term sheet, so we're no longer throwing out estimations. These are now firm numbers. What we still can't give you is the exact monthly payment, simply because that will be done on an individual basis, because in some cases late payments will have to be factored into that amount that they have to pay, as well as we have to calculate how much the charge for the bank fees, because those have to also go back and be prorated to the number of participants in the loan program. So the more the participants, the more that money will be allocated. In other words, the less people will pay. And we will try to roll this into the repayment as well. So again, the amount is not going to be a large amount, but it still has to be calculated in the overall payment. So we have come up with a plan for the owners. It's just up to the owners now whether they consider it appropriate and acceptable, and if so, we have addressed that particular issue. And as Sonny mentioned, there are provisions in the loan agreement with the owners that in the event that they do not keep up their end of the bargain, the association has various rights to accelerate loan collection, and obviously in the worst case, certainly we have the opportunity to place a lien on the property if necessary. So that's all we can tell you about it for now. We will eventually take this back to a board meeting because we do have to approve as a board the loan amount before we can sign an agreement with the bank. But before we can do that, we've got to have 22 owners or 20 or however many that are going to go ahead. They have to formally commit to it because we can't close the loan with the bank until we have formal commitment from the owners. So it's a process. We've got to take care of this over the next couple of weeks, and Sonny and John will be basically continuing to spearhead that. And I would just like to take this opportunity to congratulate them and to express our appreciation for taking on this task. It was not their original job to do. But it was basically left hanging in the air, and they took it over very graciously, and they have seen it to fruition. So thank you, Sonny and John, and I hope that the owners who need this appreciate the work that's been done on their behalf. Yeah, Jake.
I understand that you're going to take the loan on behalf of the building and the association.
Correct.
The association, therefore, is responsible for making payments on that loan.
That's correct.
So failure to make any of those payments, the association has to levy those charges to the rest of the building.
That's correct.
Okay.
Now,
So-
one of the reasons what we're going to try to do, Jake, just so you know, I didn't want to get into the nuts and bolts of it, but I will mention it. The loan amount is more than what we believe will be the exposure for loans being granted to the owners. So in the worst case, we could cover short-term situations with drawdowns on the line itself to cover those circumstances if we had to act against a particular owner because of default.
But then the unit owners would be charged even interest on that additional money.
That's correct.
money too.
The owners
So
are
it's a-
exposed. The owners are exposed in that respect, yes.
Okay. How many people have not paid any of the assessments so far? Because I think we're going into number 4
In June.
in payment.
Well, basically, basically, there's a number of them that are in default, and basically in default, there's a whole series of things that occur, and I don't want to get into that discussion tonight, but yeah, we're getting close to getting into a default situation with, how many is it? 14?
There's about, as of May 27th, there were 17.
17?
Includes the people that are going to take them.
Some of them are, but some of them, interestingly enough, are not. So I don't really know what's bothering some of those people, but unfortunately, they're probably going to have a rude awakening in another short time from now.
Another few days.
Yeah.
The 15th.
I'm sorry? Well, we're going to be taking action, yes. I don't want to say what we're doing yet, but we will be taking action. Yeah, we will be taking action.
We know.
It's premature yet to discuss what actions we'll be taking, but this is in the hands of the attorneys already, and so yeah, action will be taken. Yes, sir. There's nobody else, it's all you.
I was looking at the treasurer, Mike Ringler, 907. Just clarify one thing. You did say that should the homeowner not pay, we will lien them?
We have the right
We
to
have
do
the right
that.
to lien them.
Yes, sir. And that will be, first of all, under the law, we have that right. But in addition to that, we will be signing a loan agreement with the owner.
Okay.
Because the loan agreement has a number of stipulations in it that are actually gives us certain rights to accelerate, for example, the loan balance due. So in other words, instead of an owner saying, well, I only owe $1,400 or $2,800, whatever it is, we could demand the $17,500 immediately. So there are stipulations.
And why would an
But-
owner
but-
want to, excuse me, why would an owner want to even conceive of signing something like that?
It's up to them.
No, that's not my question.
Why
Why would
would
they
they?
do that? Yes.
If you look at most of your agreements and these types of arrangements, most of them have acceleration clauses in there.
No. You're, what, okay, let me ask it this way. So if a person is in default, and I may be wrong, but the understanding is that they will effectively be required to come, to take that loan? Is
No.
that what you're stating?
No,
They will not.
no. I mean, anybody that's in default, all they have to do is get out of default is make a payment, but they got a lot of
We
payments.
understand that, but what is their action? If they're in default, what takes place? What are the steps?
What's going to take place?
Yeah.
Well, that's in the lawyer's hands right now. There's a number of remedies. One is you just simply start levying charges. You can levy late charges, and you can levy interest charges.
But in the interim, the rest of the owners have to pay for that, for the deficit.
Well, not really, because there's no cost to us to.
Yes, there is, because they're contributing their portion of our collective costs for those windows.
Well, only in the context of them. Okay.
No, and this is where
Okay.
I'm going. We,
Let's.
we, in our community, in our board, on a few occasions,
You're talking about,
had to, in our, where.
okay,
our
fine, the
our
other
residents,
place, yeah.
Okay? At a few times, said to these people, you have not paid for whatever, we are leaning your house. And we're within the law, okay?
That is correct.
And the response was, go ahead. I'll
Okay.
worry about it when I sell my house or I sell my apartment.
Yeah, the problem
You
is
can't sell it until you can.
the problem is they can't sell it until they free the lien. So.
Yeah, but in the meantime, we're paying for
Well,
them to.
okay, but let me ask the question in a different way. I mean, the law only gives us certain remedies. The law says you can charge interest, which we can do. They say you can charge late fees, which we can do. And then they say you can put a lien after a certain time frame, okay? All of those remedies are under consideration. All of those remedies will begin to be applied in the near future. So I'm not in any way suggesting that we're restricting any of those options. And certainly we're not going to ignore defaults. We will take action, but we're trying also to understand and to recognize that some of these people were trying to get financing and not being able to do it. And we wanted to have in place the financing. We've got in place the financing now. So as far as I'm concerned, there is no legitimate reason why an owner cannot find a way to pay the assessment. If they elect not to pay the assessment, it's because they've chose that they're not going to do it for whatever reasons, or simply financially they can't do it. And if they can't pay a $200 plus $1 a month payment, then believe me, they have a serious issue that can't be thrown onto the condominium to assume. We're not a welfare state.
Exactly. That's my point.
You have taken people, and it's not that I don't believe me. I could be on the street tomorrow, any of us can. We don't know what tomorrow brings. And it's not that I don't have a heart, okay? What you have done is taken people, for whatever their reasons, and I sympathize with the medical, with a lot of things, okay? But you've taken people with no credit, or poor credit, but they came
Well, a lot of the people that are,
What's getting to is that I am gonna be paying for 24 people.
Helena, but let me explain something to you. This association, unfortunately, is not a, a normal one. I don't think. I hate to say it, but I mean, we've got too many owners in this building that, for protest reasons or for reasons, well, but a good number of the people that haven't paid are in that category.
Only 24 going to financing. I'm talking about those people.
Well, once they go to financing, they go to financing then. I mean,
What if they don't have the means to finance after we have taken it out on our credit line? Okay? 24 people are financing through this building at 5% because they can't come up with $1,500 a month. Okay? Which to some is a lot, to some it's not so much.
well, there's been a lot, Helena, we understand you, and I think there's been a tremendous soul searching on this particular board.
They can't make a monthly payment. That's what Ralph is asking. We then have to pick up the slack. Okay, so you write them letters, and we pick up the slack for 3 months, okay? And they still aren't paying, but they can't. Okay, legitimately they can't, okay? So then you write them, you leave the property, okay? My two-part question is, one, does a condo association have the right to foreclose?
Yes,
They do.
yes.
Okay, and is there, what if there's obviously a mortgage out on most of these properties? So
Not
what
ne-
happens then?
Not necessarily.
In some cases, there's actually no mortgage.
If there's absolutely no mortgage, then we have no right, to pick up the cudgels of somebody who has a $300,000 apartment, okay?
Well, but we don't know under what circumstances they may have obtained that house.
Credit on a free.
Well, but some cases they can't, well,
Tell me what the circumstances would be. That a bank that has a $350,000 or more property, and I'm specific about that person, okay, was a $400,000 or $500,000 property, and they can't get a 17.5 line of credit.
yeah, well,
You're missing a piece. You're missing a piece.
No.
Anyway.
I know what you're saying. Most of these people, their mortgages,
But eventually when it's sold, all of those fees, I understand that, but I realize that, and I understand that, but eventually those fees get reimbursed when they sell all of those fees that accrue. But I have a statement from the state that we have to carry it for 8 times. It's been carried for 10 years.
Seven.
If they have no mortgage, and you have a side maybe that they have good mortgage in, okay, I'll take the risk, because we can foreclose on $500,000 property.
yeah, we only need to take one. So we only need to take one.
No, we need to take all, because they're all equal.
Look, the bottom line is, we have bent over backwards, we believe, to deal with the people who, for whatever reasons, can't find the financing. We believe that we have been, yes, sir.
How are you separating the bank loan, the people that go, the 22 people for that, and the other X number of people that just aren't paying, not even interested? How are you gonna separate those?
Well, that's easy. The ones that aren't part of that 22 are going to get advised very soon that they have a difficulty that they have to overcome. We do. What we will be notifying all of the owners in the near future, the actions, specific actions that will be taken, but it's premature to discuss what we're going to do until we do it. But we will be taking action.
You do have the right.
Yes, we do have the right. The first steps, though, the way it works in these situations, is the first step is you basically tell somebody, you're in default, guy, it's time to, come forward, take care of your obligations, and go from there. I mean, and then you follow the process. But there will be late fees, there will be interest charges, and there will be, if necessary, more stringent actions. I'm sorry? Legal fees, yes. That's all in there as well.
No, they're
charged
paying.
to the
They're
people
paying
that
the
are-
legal.
All the legal fees are getting rolled in.
That's true. I think there's no question.
Okay, open mic.
let's move on. Open mic, yeah. Well, you're
Okay,
gonna-
fine. Done.
Question number one. Is this not Mr. Longobardo's third meeting in a row that he hasn't been here?
Yes.
And what do our documents say regarding that?
I would prefer not to respond to that
Well,
question.
let me respond to it then. Is he not supposed to be removed from the board? Anybody, except for extenuating circumstances, like if we were in a hospital?
Mr. Longobardo doesn't believe that he's obligated to respond to any obligation, so I think that's something that is for the lawyers to review and decide upon, but...
Are they reviewing it and deciding on
yes.
it after today? Okay,
Yes.
that's number one. And how much did it cost us? Again, I need another financial statement. In legal fees regarding Mr. Longobardo's claims for non-permitting work, which I guess have been
Oh,
resolved.
God, I don't
I
keep...
have a right to know.
No, of course you do.
Do you want me to look? I'll make an afternoon.
We've been
and look
trying
for it.
to stay away from this conflict, reality in this friggin' association. Forgive me for saying it, but yes, he's cost us a bundle. Now, we don't have the time to sit there and calculate all this, but Helena, if you want it, we'll get it for you.
I want all of those, okay?
Now,
and
tell me exactly what you want so we get it.
okay. And I'm not in a hurry. Take your time. I know there are other.
We'll get the numbers.
Okay,
What do you want?
I want the numbers for Longobardo's non-permitting claims.
For his what?
Didn't he put in stop work or whatever? Didn't we have to respond that he put in with the state about us working with we weren't permitted?
Yes.
Didn't he put in a?
Oh, he's gone to every Tom, Dick, and Harry in the country.
And we've incurred some.
Well, we haven't seen all of the people he's complained to.
I don't care about the people.
She's
I just want the
questioning
legal
whether there's any
fees.
legal fees that
John,
were
you gotta
incurred
listen.
as a result of
Legal
it.
fees. That's all I care
I'll
about.
have to check to see to what extent, because in some cases, the lawyer may or may not be identifying him involved in the cases. So it would have to be a case where the lawyer is actually identifying that there's legal expenses. She does pretty good documentation,
I'm sure
so
she does. I'm not-
I'll try to see
The same
if
thing with Cucarudo. Okay.
well, anything related to the state investigation is easy because she did
And
considerable
those
work
were
on
the
that.
people that were involved in that.
Yeah,
Okay, anything relating to the state, let's not use names, we'll use anything relating to state issues.
Oh, good.
yeah, we have
Okay.
state and city.
Okay, and city.
State and
town
city.
County, I don't care. Now, I wasn't there, but I understand there are marks in the garage, some red marks all over the garage.
That's
correct.
correct.
Okay, I'd like to know who made the red marks and what is gonna be done about having red marks removed and who's gonna be
Okay.
responsible?
You don't remove the red marks because what they are doing is signaling that there is repairs that need to be made.
And who made this?
One particular director took it upon himself to decide that it was time that work had to be done, so he individually decided to do that work, or decided to do those markings, let's put it that way.
Okay, so I would hold that, I personally, as a unit owner, think that person should find a way to remove them if it wasn't authorized by the board.
Why don't we get rid of the marks? Not the marks, why not get rid of the problem?
That would be fine, but you see at this.
Well,
point-
I think if we're going to get rid of the problem, let's have a discussion on the board. I'd love to have that discussion. How many of our problems are we going to tackle at the same time?
We have to walk with our heads down to make sure we don't fall into one of the crevices.
We should be
Okay.
working with our heads.
It's
Then
very
why was this not
dangerous.
brought up at a board meeting?
Well, it is brought
It's such
up.
an important thing, excuse me. If this
No,
person
it's not
thought,
about that. This problem has existed for years.
I agree.
You know that. This problem has existed for years. It's been brought up for years. There were board members involved going back to 2010, because that's when it was done.
Right.
And
There's one right near.
and we're busy doing our
Others.
the typical.
So my question
chasing
would be,
each
if
other
everybody
around, trying to
knows
see
about
if
it,
we can
why
get to
did
the
he
top.
feel, why did
We
he
haven't
feel,
accomplished a thing.
why did he feel, he can't answer and you can't answer for him?
What I can tell you,
I'm
Helene-
just bringing it up because I'd like.
No,
to
no, but
know.
let me just very quickly address that. I mean, the board has priorities in terms of how to spend our money, and that was not among the priorities. Obviously, in some cases, I think in 2 or 3 cases, we have put in patches in there, knowing full well that those patches have to be dug out, and eventually the repair has to be done correctly.
It should have been done when the last whatever was done and those people who did it messed up. I'm not gonna argue that. Okay, my last.
All that's being
My last thing
evaluated.
to spend some money would be, when I drive up, and I'm a stranger here, okay? I think the front of our building is quite disgusting, and if I was looking for real estate, I know we sold 4 houses.
The front of the building?
The front, when you pull up the driveway.
Okay.
Going up the driveway to
What would you like to see done
Okay, I will
also?
I will tell you what you could do for probably not a lot of money to make it look more presentable. I tell you the truth, if I was looking at this building and I saw those ugly pots standing there with all that crap, okay, I would not get out of my realtor's door, because I would say that that is indicative of, without knowing any background in this building, and maybe it's just me, but I would say, this is not the place for me, because it is really skanky, all right?
Until they walked inside the building.
And then they would confirm.
But no,
No, what I would suggest.
That was inappropriate.
What I might suggest, and I don't think it would cost a lot of money, is that we build, those interlocking blocks that they sell at Home Depot. I used them in Connecticut to do a retaining wall, okay? Just put it by even the front window, stick those pots behind it, you got some greenery, or put something else in the pots. I know we don't want to put anything down below, because we used to have the drainage problem. I get it, I have enough history. But at least it would give some kind of a look to the front of the building. Because we got things with shoes missing on the bottom and dipped. I mean, it looked like somebody drunk put it together. And
Maybe they did. They were drunk. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
I think you've raised valid concerns, and one of the things we were discussing with the whole landscaping approach is, at some point, we do have to allocate money for a lot of things like that. Unfortunately, we're being pressed against the wall by a lot of costs that we didn't anticipate. This building is demanding many costs, and the conflicts that exist in this building are creating significant distractions, let's put it that way, to
For lack of a better word. We used to have somebody taking care of that. He moved.
I don't disagree with you. Let me discuss it with the board and with our manager, and let's see if there's something that we can do to address that. I don't disagree with you. I think you're right.
We talked about this before.
Yeah.
In fact, when I was first hired here, and people were telling me that those planters were donated, and that we just can't get rid of the planters, and I'm like, oh, the most horrible things I ever saw. I know.
The people that donated probably are long gone, so let's do away with them as well.
If I had the permission of the board, I'll get rid of them, and I'll put it in.
We'll canvass the board, and if the board wants to get rid of the trees, we'll get rid of the trees. Or excuse me, the planters.
The planters.
Yep, I agree.
Are you
Okay.
volunteering? Yeah, well, unfortunately,
All right, is there anything else? If not, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to
motion to adjourn.
ask for a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. 8:50.